In a stark display of leadership contrast, Oregon Representative Suzanne Bonamici confronted the quiet crisis unfolding in American quantum science today. While administration officials tout quantum dominance in press releases, Bonamici methodically exposed the reality: slashed budgets, frozen grants, and a bleeding exodus of international talent. Facing witnesses from NIST and the National Science Foundation, the Congresswoman, a former educator and steadfast advocate for scientific investment, drew a direct line between this administration's hollowing out of federal science agencies and America's eroding competitive edge. As physicists like Dr. Kushmak and Dr. Gonzalez struggle to maintain workforce pipelines with skeleton crews, Bonamici asked the question no one in power seems willing to answer. What does quantum leadership look like when you've dismantled the institutions that make it possible?
Our next, I recognize Representative Bonamici from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the esteemed witnesses for being here and for your expertise. I discern that at least two of the witnesses, half of the panel, appear to be immigrants. And I want to thank you for exemplifying the contributions of immigrants to our economy, to our scientific enterprise, and to our communities. So thank you. Quantum science, we know, will shape the next century of scientific discovery, and the United States still holds a narrow lead. Whether we can hold onto that lead will depend on having people who are educated through sustained federal investments, students, technicians, engineers, and researchers. And at the same time, this administration talks about quantum dominance. It has slashed agency budgets, shed expert staff, frozen grants, and destabilized the workforce pipelines that quantum leadership requires. I'm a member of the Education Committee as well. Very concerned about what's happening with higher education. We can't win a global technology race by hollowing out the institutions that recruit, educate, and retain talent. So Dr. Kushmak, NIST supports, of course, the Quantum Economic Development Consortium, QEDC, which convenes leaders to identify needs in the quantum workforce. So what specific workforce challenges pose the greatest threat to U.S. quantum leadership right now, and which of those can Congress most easily and rapidly address?
Thank you for the question. So yes, the QEDC has polled its members, the industry, the quantum industry directly, to really understand where these challenges are. And it's not just in quantum physicists kind of leading the efforts, it's really all the way through to engineers and technicians and people at all levels. So I really think we need a whole government effort to kind of increase the pipeline. I mean,
Absolutely.
We need to increase the pipeline, and through certificates to degrees and other activities. So yeah, I think that's where I would go.
And reducing the cost of higher education is on the list of many of my colleagues and myself, because those doors of opportunity should be open to everyone who chooses to attend higher education. Dr. Gonzalez, graduate physics enrollment fell sharply in 2025, and international students who make up a large share of the quantum pipeline are increasingly hesitant to study in the United States or to stay in the United States. So I'm going to ask you, what will quantum look like in the U.S. 5 years from now if these delayed and frozen awards and agency staffing losses and reckless immigration and student visa policies continue?
Thank you for the question. I think that for us, quantum, for the NSF, quantum is a priority for the agency. And we'll do everything we can to keep it to deliver on that priority. It is right now. It's difficult to the first thing you mentioned about the grad students to predict what that will look at in a few years. But it's not just physics that we need to bring into the fold. There's computer scientists, engineers, material scientists, the whole range of disciplines that make quantum happen, as you mentioned.
I appreciate that. And if Congress does reauthorize the National Quantum Initiative, but the agencies lack the appropriate staff to manage the grants or to review proposals, what happens to those workforce pathways?
So one thing I would say about the NSF, we have great staff, and we are resilient. We're adapting to the changing situation, and so folks are sort of contributing everything they can. what I'll say. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And it just, again, we need to open up those doors of opportunity to higher education. And that is something this administration has not made a priority. The Higher Education Act back in the 1960s, when President Johnson signed it, talked about opening those doors. There's so much potential out there, but if people can't afford to get the education, they won't be able to join that important workforce. We know that quantum leadership grows from classrooms and laboratories and a workforce that can trust the federal government to show up consistently. And if we cut that funding, if we shed the expertise, and if we destabilize these educational pipelines, talent will leave. And competitors will surge ahead. So real leadership means investing in the people, protecting the scientific capacity, and matching our quantum ambitions with the resources we need to accomplish them. Thank you, and I yield back.
Representative Suzanne Bonamici, a former educator who has spent her career championing science funding and access to education, laid bare a contradiction at the heart of this administration's approach. You cannot simultaneously claim to pursue quantum dominance while systematically dismantling the very infrastructure that makes such dominance possible. The numbers tell a sobering story. Graduate physics enrollment dropped sharply in 2025. International students who have historically formed the backbone of America's advanced research programs are increasingly choosing to study elsewhere. And why wouldn't they? When visa policies become weaponized, when grants are frozen mid-cycle, when research labs lose expert staff to budget cuts, the message to the global scientific community is unmistakable. America is no longer a reliable partner in the pursuit of knowledge. Dr. Kushmak from NIST and Dr. Gonzalez from the National Science Foundation did their diplomatic best to answer Bonamici's pointed questions. Their responses carefully measured, appropriately cautious, revealed professionals trying to maintain scientific programs with skeleton crews and diminished resources. Dr. Gonzalez's assurance that we are resilient and adapting to the changing situation is admirable, but it's also a euphemism for doing more with less while watching competitors like China invest billions in the same fields we're defunding. Bonamici's invocation of the 1965 Higher Education Act wasn't merely nostalgic. When President Lyndon Johnson signed that legislation, he understood something this administration appears to have forgotten, that America's competitive advantage has never come from walls or exclusion, but from being the place where the world's best minds want to come, study, innovate, and stay. The congressman noted that half the witness panel were immigrants, a pointed reminder that American scientific achievement is, and always has been, a story of immigration. The quantum workforce crisis she described isn't abstract. It's engineers who can't be hired, technicians who can't be trained, graduate students who can't get visas, and researchers whose multi-year projects are abruptly defunded. It's the compounding effect of instability because science doesn't run on quarterly earnings reports. It requires sustained investment, institutional trust, and the confidence that today's PhD student will still have a funded postdoc position in 5 years. Perhaps most damning was the gap Bonamici identified between rhetoric and resource allocation. An administration that speaks of quantum dominance while slashing NIST and NSF budgets is engaged in what we might charitably call strategic incoherence, or less charitably, mere performance. Dominance isn't declared in press conferences, it's built in laboratories, one experiment, one graduate student, one peer-reviewed paper at a time. As the hearing concluded, Bonamici's warning hung in the air. Talent will leave, and competitors will surge ahead. This isn't speculation, it's already happening. The question isn't whether America can afford to invest in quantum science and the educational pipelines that sustain it. The question is whether we can afford not to.